Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of Midweek Meetings. This is episode number 7. I am KnockdownNico with the camera alongside Pr3ssix.
What's up?
Week number 6 has concluded in the NFL season, and we'll get into some games, but I want to start out with there are a lot of headlines that we're going to be going through today. We got some trades. You could say that the trade season before the deadline is officially here. We have some pretty big names that have gotten traded. We got some other, very serious headlines as well. But we'll get into those after we recap some of the games, and then we'll get into those headlines. Then our predictions for week 7, our auto lock, our fantasy football, and we're going to finish off the episode with a fun question. But starting off, going to recap some of the games. We're going to start off with a couple of rookies made their NFL starting debuts. Let's put it at that, because Drake May did play in some garbage time earlier this season. But Drake May, Spencer Rattler, they made their starting debuts, and, well, they both lost. But what did you think of their play?
I thought Drake May actually didn't look too bad, to be honest. I thought he definitely looked better than Spencer Rattler. I don't think Rattler is a starting quarterback in the NFL, in my opinion. I could see him as a career backup, maybe. But May, I think he definitely has a future. Give him some time, he'll figure it out. We saw it in that game on Sunday or whatever. He started a little slow. I believe he threw a pick on like the third play of the game or something. But he kind of settled in. He kind of made a dent, and he has more passing touchdowns than Jacoby Brissett this season. So I think he's fit for the job, and he'll probably keep the starting job if he keeps performing. So positive for Drake May. Spencer Rattler, I mean, he competed, I guess. I mean, they were somewhat competitive in that game the whole way through, I think. But I think a lot of that had to do with the defense, getting picks and stuff. So just overall, positive performance from Drake May. Spencer Rattler, not as positive.
That Saints-Bucks game was crazy. I mean, Baker had like 3 picks, and they still dropped 50 points, which was insane. But yeah, I mean, Spencer Rattler, he looked good that one quarter where they scored all their points, the Saints. But once Todd Bowles started dialing up those exotic blitz looks, it got to Spencer Rattler, confused him a lot, and we saw him make some mistakes and stuff. So, we'll have to see how he plays on Thursday, because he's playing Thursday against the Broncos. So, we'll see if he's able to improve or not. But, I mean, he didn't really look too good outside of that second quarter where they scored all their points. So, I don't know. Spencer Rattler, I feel like he's going to be, one game he's going to be insane, and the other game is going to just not look, he's going to look like a bottom, 3 quarterback in the league. Drake May, though, like you said, looks like he's got some potential. You can see it with his, his long passes. I forgot what the stat was, but I think there was some stat like, I don't know if it was with the Patriots or with the league, but Drake May threw like 235 or 30 plus yard passes. I'm not sure if they both went for touchdowns or not, but he can throw the ball downfield, which was something the Patriots weren't doing, and it's something they need to do, even if it doesn't connect every play, because they can't fully rely on the run game, especially if the run game gets stopped. And most teams know that they're going to be a run-heavy offense. But with Drake May, I think it gives them a little more options. It's just going to be, can he improve on his play? And will his wide receivers be able to step up and make those plays? I think Hunter Henry is capable of doing that, but he's more of a tight end. So let's see if Jalen Polk and Kendrick Bourne and all those receivers can step up if Drake May takes the next step as well. But yeah, they still lost though. I mean, both quarterbacks lost, but that Bucks Saints game was insane to watch. Gonna move on. We're gonna go two routes on this one. The Jags versus the Bears in London. The Bears dominated this game. I mean, Caleb Williams is starting to look like what we expected Caleb Williams to look like with that first overall pick. But are the Jags the worst team in the NFL? And is the NFC North the best or / most competitive division in football this season?
You know, the Jags, they had that win against the Colts 2 weeks ago, and that gave me a little bit of hope in them. I'm not gonna lie. Trevor Lawrence looked decent in that game, but man, they could not figure it out in London. They looked terrible. ETN,
Got injured again.
non-factor. Yeah, he's having a rough time. He's looks like he's gonna have an injury-bugged season here. I don't even know if he'll be the main running back in this offense in the upcoming weeks. So, are they the worst? They're probably one of the worst. I think the Panthers are still the worst team in the NFL as of right now, but I'd say the Jags are around that 30th or 31st spot. Um, but the Bears, NFC North, wow, it's crazy. I saw the stat today, the NFC North. So the top four teams in point differential are all teams from the NFC North. And I believe every team in the NFC North has a plus 40 or more point differential in their games this season. So that's crazy to think about. Um, we haven't seen many division games other than the Packers versus Vikings, which came down to the wire with that late comeback. So it's kind of hard to judge, in my opinion, how these teams rank up against each other. But I would say the NFC North is the most competitive division in football right now. But I am putting the Bears on fraud alert here. 4-2. Their record's been pretty easy. The second half of their season, I could see them not winning a single game. They got a tough schedule, so I don't know if they'll stay up here. But I think the other three teams are definitely going to be competing for that division title and a wild card spot. Bears, I'd see them finishing around 8-9. That's my prediction, I think, for the rest of the season. And so yeah, but I definitely say that's the best team or the best division in the NFL right now.
I saw a stat, I think it was Sunday, that the NFC East, or I'm sorry, the NFC North, with all teams having 4 wins, is the first time since 2002 when I'm not sure which team. One of the teams moved over to the NFC North. I'm not sure which team it was, but it's the first time since 2002 that all 4 teams have had 4 or more wins in the first 6 games. But yeah, I mean, like you're saying, they're going to have a tough schedule. They play Detroit twice. They play Green Bay twice. They play Minnesota twice. So those are all going to be good teams. I'm not sure who else they play the rest of this season. I'd have to look that up. But the Jaguars are probably going to be a top 3 pick in the draft. I mean, yeah. I mean, Etienne, I don't know what's up with him. He's got now a hamstring injury. He's most likely going to be out at least 2 to 3 weeks from what I'm seeing, which sucks. It sucks for that. It sucks for the Jaguars. It sucks for me on fantasy, which we'll get to later because that might be the worst pick I've ever done in fantasy. But the Jaguars, I mean, outside of like Brian Thomas Jr., there's really no good spots, highlights on that team. And we'll get to it in our headlines. They did trade away a defensive player who seems pretty solid. So, yeah, I think the Jaguars, like, they're not in tank mode, but they are in tank mode. It kind of feels like they're trying to play competitively, but they're just bad, but they're not in a full tank mode like Cleveland is kind of, which we'll get to later with that huge trade the Cleveland Browns made. But yeah, I think the Panthers are probably worse than this team. You know, maybe the Browns are worse than this team as well, but yeah, it's not looking good for the Jags. And I mean, I do think the NFC North is probably the most competitive division in football right now. I think we were expecting maybe I think we were expecting the AFC North to be the most competitive division this season, which is not turning out to be what it is. It's the NFC, but let's just see, like you said, how how the Bears schedule, the second half of that season, because they're on a bye week this week. So we'll have to see how that second half of their season, comes around, how they manage those games, because they've got some very tough opponents.
Just to put the Bears' schedule in context here, they got the Commanders, Cardinals, Patriots. So probably win 2 out of the 3 out of those games. But then this is how their season ends. They had the Packers, Vikings, Lions, 49ers, Vikings, Lions, Seahawks, Packers. I think the Bears are lucky if they get 2 of those games, if I'm going to be honest with you. The Bears team, maybe they can split some divisional matchups, but that's a really tough schedule going down the stretch there. I mean, yeah, it's not, I don't know.
I feel like
We'll
they
have to
can
see.
maybe split Minnesota from their defense, not from. I mean, maybe they go off on offense because they've had sparks on the offense, but I feel like they can split that division series with Minnesota, but it's going to be because of the defense, and then maybe they can beat Seattle. It's going to depend how Seattle looks, if they can get back to how they looked at the beginning of the season, because right now their defense, I think the last 3 games they've given up the most points and the most rushing yards, if I want to say as well. So yeah, it depends, I guess, what side of Seattle they get as well. But it's a real tough schedule to end off. So maybe they get a wild card, maybe they're in that wild card conversation. But I highly doubt they even go 3-3 in that in the division alone off those games. All right, moving on to our last recap game, Lions Cowboys. We're not really going to recap the Lions because, I mean, this game was over before it started pretty much. But what is happening to the Dallas Cowboys? And I can give some input on this. I think a big part of what's happening to the Dallas Cowboys is they have no run game.
Yeah, I agree. Um, it's hard to move an offense when you don't have a run game. I mean, that's just how it is. CD can't do everything for you. And Dak did not look good in that game against Detroit either, so that definitely didn't help. But I think Dallas's biggest issue here is their defense. Their defense is supposed to be good. It's been good the last, well, forever. It feels like Dallas is always known for having a solid defense. But with the injuries, this team doesn't look like they compete on defense, and they need someone to step up. Or if they want to compete, they need to make a trade, I feel like, for defense. I mean, their secondary is getting torched. They're not able to stop the run as we saw against Detroit. It's just all over the place for Dallas. And honestly, I don't know if I was Jerry Jones, I don't know what I would do because he seems very upset about the whole situation. But he's in a weird spot. He's paid all this money, gave CD the contract or whatever. Dak's getting paid, but they're not really performing. So how do you build around that? I don't know. It's really hard. I don't know.
I feel like, I mean, I think they still have a chance to make the playoffs, probably as a wild card team. But like you said, they definitely need to make some trades on the defensive side. But I feel like from the offensive side as well, they need to trade for a running back because Rico Dowell, I feel like, is more of a, passing back, third down type of running back. He's more kind of like that Tony Pollard type of player. If he gets a load of the touches, he's not going to be as productive. But if he's kind of that guy that comes in when the RB1 is, I wouldn't say RB1, but that main running back comes out for a breather or a drive or two, he can give that explosiveness. But he's not the main guy. So they need like a bruiser, they need almost like a David Montgomery of some sort to, take some blows essentially, and then you give it off to Rico Dowell, whether it's a short screen pass or a run, and he can be explosive from that. The defense, yeah, I mean, the defense is just all over the place. They just need help in multiple spots. I don't think that I think the injuries have caught up to them as well. I'm gonna look quickly to see who is injured for them because I'm pretty sure it's a lot. Let me look. Okay, yeah, I mean Micah Parsons as of right now is out. You have your middle linebacker. You have Eric Kendricks, their main middle linebackers listed as out. You have essentially you essentially have 4 defensive ends on IR. You have, one of your cornerbacks on IR, and then your other one is out as of right now. It's just like their defense is just injury bugged. So I think, obviously they're not going to get all these players back now, but I think if they get a couple of these players back, their defense is definitely better than it is right now. But I think it's just injury bug. So, they're in a tough spot, like you said. I think they can still get a wild card spot, but they're not going to make a playoff push like we expect them to every year, and then they end up losing the divisional round. I think this is kind of a lame duck season in a sense. This is a win if they can, be a high wild card spot. And then it's just going to, be a regroup. What do we need to improve on in the offseason? Who do we need to draft? I definitely do think they need to draft another wide receiver, especially if, I'm not sure Brandon Cook's contract, but especially if he, leaves or something of that sort, because he's on IR. And while the other players have, stepped up, it just hasn't been to the production or the experience that Brandon Cooks has had. So I think this is kind of a lame duck season for the Cowboys. So I think it's just going to, as long as they don't get more injuries, that's pretty much what it's going to come down to. All right, moving on. So those are the games we're going to recap. Moving on to our headlines. We're going to start off with a big one. Aiden Hutchinson, he broke his leg in that Cowboys game pretty much in I wouldn't say garbage time, but they were up by a lot. He went under immediate surgery pretty much. So surgery, from what I've seen online, went successful, but I'm guessing he's out for the year, although there has been some stuff flying around saying that he could return if the Lions make the Super Bowl. But this is a huge loss for Detroit anyway.
Yeah, the injury timeline I've been seeing is 4 to 6 months. So if you go on the short end of that, you go to 4 months, even then you're pushing the Super Bowl. So that's a huge blow for the Lions. He's a big piece of that defense. It'll be interesting to see how they play defense. Although Dan Campbell seems pretty optimistic about the whole thing. He thinks he's got the guys and that can replace Hutchinson. So we'll see how that defense looks. I don't expect too much of a change defensively. Maybe more blitzes is the only thing I could see coming from Detroit. I think Detroit has to get pressure. Their secondary is all right, but if good opposing quarterbacks, have time in the pocket against Detroit, I think they'll be able to expose their secondary very easily. So we might see a little bit of a defensive scheme change. Just coming out now, breaking news. The Lions also signed McNeil, who's a big part of that defensive line, um, where Aiden Hutchinson lives too. So he will have to be a big part in this defense going forward for the rest of the year. He's a beast. He's been destroying the Packers last year, I'm not gonna lie. But it's okay. Um, I think the Lions will be fine. I still see them as very legitimate playoff contenders, and I just hope Hutchinson comes back and is better next year.
Yeah, I've seen that. They agreed to a 4-year extension for Ali McNeil. Seems solid. They also have Josh Pascal on edge, who's pretty decent. And then I'm not sure on his timeline, but Marcus Davenport is on IR as well, who's pretty solid as well. So if they get him back this season, well, he was placed on IR 21 days ago, so I'm not sure how much time he's gonna need for his triceps injury. So he may come back, and if he does, that'll be good for Detroit. Obviously, it won't be Aiden Hutchinson good, but he's a solid player. And I think the main thing I think they're just gonna have to see where they're at. Obviously, if they don't make it to the Super Bowl, they're not obviously playing. But if they make it to the Super Bowl, I think it's gonna be a big decision on how is Aiden Hutchinson, like how is his recovery, how is he feeling? Because I think the worst thing you can do is rush him back from an injury like that. And look, I mean, it's a big injury. It's a serious injury. He may not even, have that explosiveness that he once had just because of how bad that injury was. It may come back to a certain extent, but it may not be to the explosiveness that he once had. So I think it's just going to be, depends on how his recovery is and how fast or slow it goes. Because I mean, he's without a doubt the best player on that defensive side. He had I think he had 6.5 sacks or 7 sacks before he got injured this season. Yeah, he had 7.5 sacks before he got injured, which is absolutely insane. So I think that Detroit needs to play more on the cautious side with him, but we'll see what they end up doing. All right, moving on to our next headline. We have the first trade of the NFL season. Seattle is trading for Jaguars defensive tackle Roy Robertson Harris. Now, the Jaguars are going to get a 6th-round pick in 2026 for this, and being that the majority of you probably have never heard of this guy, I'll just give a quick rundown. He's played in all 6 games this year. He has 7 tackles, 3 TFLs, 2 sacks. He's only started 2 games, but he's averaging about 3 sacks per 17 games in his career, and he's got 19 sacks as a D tackle over. This is his 8th season in the league. So, I mean, what do you think of this trade?
I think it was a good trade for Seattle. I'm pretty sure they need some depth at that position. Seems to be a pretty weak part on their defense, being that they are giving up a ton of rushing yards against their opponents. I mean, they had a freaking rookie, Garendo or whatever, from the 49ers last week go for almost 100 yards, in the absence of Jordan Mason. So this run defense for Seattle needs a revamp. I think this will help them if they want to compete this season. I think this is also a good move for the Jags, though. This guy's not a star player. He's kind of just a role player. Um, Jags got a draft pick for him. So I mean, draft picks always have potential. So in my opinion, I think it's a win for both teams. And yeah, we'll see how this affects the Seahawks, I guess, the most this season.
Yeah, I mean, as of right now, they have him listed. They have him listed under right the end behind Leonard Williams on the ESPN depth chart, but I think he plays more interior, which I mean they need, right? Especially, I mean, Byron Murphy is questionable as of right now, but they haven't, like I said earlier, they've given up the over the past 3 games, they've given up the most. They've been giving up almost 35 points a game. The run defense has looked very bad, so they need somebody up there that can stop the run. And yeah, like you said, for depth, especially if Byron Murphy is out, who, I mean, when he's seen the play, it seems like the run, although they were still giving up a decent amount of yards, it was less damaging than without him. So maybe Byron Murphy's played an impact, helping that run game or the run defense get better. But, any sort of, whether it's a role player or, solid defensive tackle, someone up front that can help stop the run is good, because that's the killer. I mean, the secondary is solid, even with some cornerbacks that are questionable with injuries. But the major thing was the front seven, and I mean, you kind of saw it the last 3 games, especially that D line. They're not getting pressure. Nwosu is on IR as well. That doesn't help them, and are just giving up so much on the run. So I like this move. He seems like a solid player from what I've seen online, at least. People seem to like this trade. So, I mean, they're only giving up a 6th-round pick. So, I mean, obviously it could be like, Tom Brady they give up, but like the Jaguars go draft, the next Tom Brady, but I highly doubt that with a 6th-round pick. So, in hindsight, it's not really bad, but at the same time, it can only help Seattle in the long run. Right, up next we have probably the biggest news of this. Actually, yeah, I would say the biggest news for this week. Devante Adams is officially headed to the Jets, and I mean, it was kind of rumored, he was looking to get traded, and it finally happened.
Yeah, man. I'm kind of confused on why this took so long to happen. I feel like this Devontae trade should have happened over the offseason, to be honest. I mean, we all knew this was going to happen eventually, right? Rodgers wanted to get his team assembled again in New York, and I'm excited to watch Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams play football together again as a Packers fan. Um, it'll be fun to watch. I'm definitely gonna watch all the Jets games now. Um, one thing I will say, does this make the Jets a better team? Honestly, I don't think so. I think the Jets, this is not the position they needed. They need offensive line. That's the reason their offense, I think, for the most part, has been struggling. I mean, think about it. You got Aaron Rodgers, 40 years old, in the pocket. If he is getting banged up every week like he has, I mean, he's got that ankle sprain he's going through. He's got a knee injury too. It's just it's just not gonna end well for them. Um, yeah, so I hope the Jets make another move to get an offensive lineman. Um, I don't know if that'll happen, but I think that's what will give them the best chances to win. And Rodgers said it, they're going all out this year. So they're already down 2-4. If they want to go all out, I mean, they might as well go ahead and get another tackle to add to that team. Um, yeah, but exciting move. I'm excited to see this connection again, and it'll definitely make the games more interesting. But this is very interesting thing for fantasy. Um, you know, Devante Adams, Aaron Rodgers, when they were playing together in Green Bay, outside of those two on offense, no one else is very valuable in fantasy in Green Bay. So it'll be interesting to see how Garrett Wilson and Brees Hall, especially, are affected by this. I think personally, all their value in fantasy goes down a lot. Um, Devante Adams and Aaron Rodgers have been playing football for forever. Some people are saying, oh, well, Garrett Wilson's been getting double teamed, so that'll bring some pressure off of him with Devontae there. But honestly, I think Aaron is throwing it to Devontae in those double teams. Devontae Adams is that guy. Don't forget, I know he's had bad quarterback play the last 2 years, so you kind of maybe forget about how good he actually is. But Devontae Adams is one of the top receivers in this league, and reconnecting with Aaron Rodgers is going to be huge for him. The rest of this Jets offense, though, I think they're going to see a significant decrease in fantasy value.
So the Raiders, they're getting a conditional third round pick that could turn into a second round pick. I'm not sure, the logistics on what needs to happen for it to become a second round pick, but at a minimum, it's a third round pick. I mean, like you said, I think it was kind of like everyone was waiting for this, and no one was surprised when this happened. There's two big losers I see on this. The first one is Garrett Wilson, and if you own him in fantasy, I think it's going to take a dip. He's, as of right now, I mean, this is before Devante Adams plays, which he's most likely going to play on Sunday against the Steelers, from what I'm hearing.
Yep.
But Garrett Wilson is the most targets this season so far, and he is second in the league with 41 receptions. That's definitely going to decrease. The other big loser, I think, on this, or I will say I not think, is Mike Williams. I think Mike Williams gets traded before the deadline. I don't know where he goes, but I think he gets traded to a completely another team, because I mean, he hasn't really done too much, Mike Williams, like this season. Let me pull it up. He only has 17 targets, 10 receptions for 145 yards, no touchdowns. And it feels like, even when there's 3 wide receivers out, if Garrett Wilson's not open, he's going Allen Lazard more than Mike Williams. So I think Mike Williams is the odd man out here. I think Aaron Rodgers would rather keep Allen Lazard, because he can play more of slot as well, or Devante Adams can. But Mike Williams is the odd man out in this, and I mean, like you said, no one's really surprised about this trade too much. We all figured it was going to happen. It was just a matter of when. There were some other rumors, Devante Adams could go somewhere else, but I think everyone was highly doubting that he would go anywhere but to the Jets, and now he's going to the Jets, so we'll have to see, how this plays out, because they, without a doubt, now have 2 really, really good wide receivers, so that's going to be a problem for teams, especially, teams that have weaker secondaries. But we'll see how, Aaron Rodgers holds up, like you said. I think the Jets could maybe go out and trade. If they do, like you said, they'll have to trade for offensive line. But, this team's looking pretty complete. So, they need to make a run for it. I feel like Aaron Rodgers needs to play a little better as well. So the defense is solid, so it's just going to be up to Aaron Rodgers. Maybe he'll rekindle some of that magic that he has, lost because of that injury last year, and we'll have to see. We'll have to see how he plays for the rest of the season. But the Jets, they're kind of, with that trade, it's not really an all-in trade, but it seems like they're doing everything they can to, be an explosive offense, and their defense can hold up. So maybe it's just going to be, you know, just, I don't even know. You know, three straight screen passes to three different people. Then one goes for like 70 yards. Who knows? It's going to be interesting to see what type of offense they run with Garrett Wilson, Devante Adams, and Brees Hall. And moving on to our next headline. Like I said, we got a lot of headlines this week. Commanders D tackle Jonathan Allen is out for the season with a pec injury. I mean, he's probably their best defensive. He's probably their top two defensive player alongside Bobby Wagner. But this is going to be a huge hit for the Commanders, especially on that front defensive line.
Yeah, no, this is a huge blow to the Commanders, whose defense, they haven't looked bad as of late, but no one expects them to be good, and this blow just hurts them even more. I mean, their defensive line has no big names really anymore, to be honest. So, yeah, their pass rush is probably gonna decline a lot, and that'll open up a lot of mistakes in the secondary. Um, One of the worst secondaries in the league, in my opinion. So, this Commanders team is gonna have to keep scoring on offense, which they haven't had a problem doing, but I think that's how they're gonna win games now. Not saying Jonathan Allen was the X factor in that defense, but he definitely played a huge role. So, therefore, Commanders have to step it up. Well, just keep performing really on offense, and the defense, they gotta figure out how to continue playing without Jonathan Allen, especially on that front line there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Jonathan Allen has 2 sacks. I mean, out of the starting, what seems to be the starting defensive line for the Commanders, he's like second, third, but I mean he's a D tackle. They got Dorrance Armstrong, who has 3 sacks, but he's questionable with an injury as well. So, I mean, not like they had an insane D line, but the defensive line for the Commanders is beat up a little bit, and I think you can without a doubt say Jonathan Allen was probably the best player on that defensive line. So this is going to be a huge loss. We'll have to see if Fedarian Mathis or Jerzon Newton can step up, but they're not going to have the same impact as Jonathan Allen. So this is going to be a big blow to the Commanders, who already don't really have the greatest defense. So we'll just have to see. As long as they keep scoring, though, like you said, as long as they keep scoring, it doesn't matter how bad the defense is. They keep scoring, they'll put themselves in a position to win the game, and that defense would just need to come up with the one big play in order to get the win. And next up, probably the second biggest headline of today, really, not even this week, of today. Amari Cooper is going to the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen gets a wide receiver 1. The Bills are getting Amari Cooper and a 2025 6th-round pick. The Browns are getting a 2025 3rd-round pick and a 2026 7th-round pick. And through all of this, they have also released Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Yeah, it's tough for MVS. He kind of just got singled out there. I hope he finds a new team. Maybe he goes back to the Chiefs, kind of like a Polo Juju maybe. But let's talk about Amari Cooper here. I think this is a positive for Amari Cooper. It's a positive for the Bills. Amari Cooper now has a quarterback to throw to him instead of Deshaun Watson. Um, and this Bills team, they needed a wide receiver 1. Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, they're not your true wide receiver 1s at the end of the day. Kincaid hasn't been having as big as an impact as we would like to see coming into the season. And so, the Bills were able to handle it without James Cook last week. But against good teams, I think Um, the Bills aren't just gonna be able to run the ball the whole game. So having Amari Cooper added to this offense is a huge help. Um, yeah, I'm excited to see how this pans out. This looks like a great wide receiver and quarterback duo that'll be really good this year. And I think this makes the Bills a locked playoff team in my opinion. I think looking at the division, I think they're favorites definitely to win that division easily. I mean they got Miami, the Jets, and
The Patriots.
Patriots, yeah, sorry, who are all spiraling. Um, so I think Bills are gonna lock up this division, and they'll be an exciting team to watch in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I agree. Amari Cooper, I mean, he's going to get a legit quarterback, like you said. I do, I do feel like you know the Bills aren't using Keon Coleman in a way we expected them to. Like I feel like he's kind of just been that like kind of deep shot guy in a sense, which I feel like Khalil Shakir can more thrive in that role. So we'll have to see. I've seen some stuff. They're going to when they have three wide receivers out, it's going to be Amari Cooper, Shakir, and Keon Coleman, and then they'll rotate Matt Collins and Curtis Samuel in as well, which is why they released Marquez Valdez-Scantling. But yeah, I mean, this is Amari Cooper. You know, he's been in not Detroit. He's been in Dallas. He's been in Cleveland, where he's been a wide receiver one. He knows what it's like to be the wide receiver one. So Josh Allen has his wide receiver one. He'll obviously be the first choice in that offense. I think this opens up Khalil Shakir as well for maybe some more big shots down the field, and kind of play him more as even though he's probably going to be wide receiver too, but more as a slot receiver in the sense. And then we'll have to see what they do with the rest of their wide receivers, because like I said, I mean, they got Curtis Samuel, who's solid. They've got Matt Collins, who I think had a touchdown yesterday. And then they got the rookie Keon Coleman, who I don't think they're really using in the way I expected them to use him. But for the Browns, I mean, you get a third and a seventh round pick. I mean, I guess that's good. But the seventh round pick, I don't know. I mean, that could either be, it's probably going to be just like a special teamer for the most of their career. But the Browns have to be in full tank mode. I don't see any way they're not. But they're keeping Deshaun Watson at quarterback. So I've got no ideas what they're doing. And I want to say as of right now, okay, never mind. It did change. So, I mean, they're tanking, but there's also I wouldn't say a lot of other teams tanking, but there are teams as bad as them. So it's going to be interesting to see where they fall in the playoffs or in the seeding for, draft. Because as of right now, they are currently fourth. Obviously, they're tied with New England, Carolina, and Jacksonville at the same record. Tennessee and Los Angeles Rams also have one win currently, but they had a bye week, so they only have 4 losses. So I'm not really sure what the tiebreaker is in this case for, the draft or whatever. But I mean, look, they're tanking, but I think there's a high chance that the best pick they get is the 4th overall. I'm not even sure they can tank and get a top 3 pick. They may even get a 5th. They may be in the 5th or the 6th overall pick. So this is like a really, I guess, sketchy situation the Browns are in essentially. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in Cleveland. And I don't think Cleveland fans are too happy about this trade, because you're without a doubt losing your best player who's not injured on the offensive side. So I mean, who are you gonna have now? You're gonna have Nick Chubb when he comes back, but he's a running back. You're gonna have David Njoku, and then your wide receiver one is essentially going to be Jerry Jeudy. Elijah Moore is questionable as of right now, and Cedric Tillman is essentially going to be your wide receiver two if Elijah Moore can't play, or he's going to be your slot receiver, which I don't know. That just doesn't seem good for Cleveland, especially with how Deshaun Watson's been playing. All right, moving on. We got Cam Akers to the Vikings. Cam Akers has been the third string running back for Houston. Did get some playing time, though, when Joe Mixon and Dameon Pierce were both out. Now, I saw something saying it was a conditional 6th-round pick. I'm not 100% sure on how accurate that is, but that seems to be what he got traded. Oh, I'm sorry. It did get updated. The Vikings will send a conditional 6th-round pick to the Texans in exchange for a 2026 7th round. So looks like Cam Akers is going back to Minnesota with a 6th-round pick, and the Texans are going to get a 7th-round pick out of it.
Yeah, I think Aaron Jones is dealing with an injury up there in Minnesota. And I think this is just to provide a spark to their run game. They brought him in last year, kind of in the same situation, to be honest, when Alexander Mattison was the lead back and he wasn't producing like they wanted him to. And I think O'Connell just likes Cam Akers for some reason. I don't know. But yeah, I think this is to bolster that Vikings run game. You know, we'll see how it pans out. Akers is familiar with the system, so he'll probably be a good fit in Minnesota. And for Houston, I mean, they're not really losing anything. In my opinion, they're really just gaining the draft pick. I mean, Mixon's back. Dameon Pierce is a valid backup, and they got Daria Gumbawale, who can also fill in. So, I mean, they really have a ton of depth at that running back room, and they, in my opinion, they just got a free 6th-round pick. Cam Akers didn't really have much value to them, and I think he's a better fit in Minnesota, anyways. So, yeah, we'll see how much of a role he actually has in this offense in the upcoming weeks with that Aaron Jones lingering injury.
Yeah, I'm not sure how. I said it one day ago. He was on the practice field, Aaron Jones, but I've seen some things saying that. I've seen everything honestly about this Aaron Jones injury. I've seen everything from he could be week to week to it could potentially, depending on how bad the hip injury is, he could be out for weeks or the rest of the season. So I do like this for Minnesota. Obviously, their backup as of right now is Ty Chandler, who can be pretty. He's not Aaron Jones, but he can do some solid stuff. He's averaging 3.5 yards a carry this season, which it's not bad. It's not stellar, but it's solid. So, if he becomes RB1, that's the thing. If Aaron Jones, let's say gets put on IR or he doesn't, or he's, out for the season, do they start Ty Chandler at RB1 or do they start Cam Akers?
No, I think they have to stick with Ty Chandler. We talked about Cam Akers being familiar. Ty Chandler has been there what feels like forever. He's just been waiting in that backfield. Aaron Jones came in, got that starting role. Ty Chandler, I think he's ready. And I think Cam Akers is strictly just a supplement and gives them more depth, honestly. And he can make those explosive plays. I feel like Ty Chandler maybe is more like the Derrick Henry type, and then you got Cam Akers, more of a passing back. I feel like so it's kind of gives Minnesota more options. I feel like in that running back room, and I think you got to stick with Ty Chandler as the running back one.
Yeah, I do agree. I think they'll have to stick with Ty Chandler. I mean, obviously, unless something happens, but yeah, I mean, Cam Akers. Like I said, I'm like for the Texans, this is kind of whatever. They had 4 running backs, but for Minnesota, they're just adding depth because they don't know how significant that Aaron Jones injury is essentially. So I'm gonna say it's too bad for either team. You trade a draft pick, you get a draft pick, so that essentially cancels out, and you are just getting rid of an extra player essentially. Okay, our last headline, because there's been so many headlines this week, but the last one we're gonna go over is Giants tackle Andrew Thomas is facing a potential season-ending injury. I want to say it's a foot injury, and it is, I guess, confirmed that he will miss an extended period of time. He has a potential Linz Frank injury, which I'd have to look that up, but I'm going to. I feel like I've heard this before, and it's not a good injury.
Yeah, Andrew Thomas is the best player on this Giants team, in my opinion. He's been solid at that left tackle spot for his most of his career. He's the cornerstone of that offensive line in New York. This is a big blow to New York. Definitely affects their run game, which has opened up a lot of opportunities in the passing game this year for New York. I mean, New York's definitely not going to be competing this year, especially with that injury. It just kind of eliminates all their chances, in my opinion. Um, yeah, this New York team. Looking forward to next year if I'm New York, to be honest. They got a rising star in Tyrone Tracy. Um, Devin Singletary is not the future of this team. Tyrone Tracy is. So just developing him, developing Malik Neighbors, getting a solid offensive line. I mean, their offensive line hasn't been this bad this year, to be honest. But I think with this injury, it's gonna be pretty hard to fill that left tackle spot. Um, so yeah, Giants. I'm looking forward to next year if I'm a Giants fan. They got a bright future ahead of them if they can get a good quarterback there.
He's without a doubt their best player or their best offensive lineman. So this is gonna be a big blow to them. And I mean, we already know how the Giants' offense is, which this isn't. This is gonna make it worse. I mean, and then you look at the rest of their team. I mean, Malik Neighbors is technically still questionable. Same with Singletary. So, yeah. I mean, I don't think that anyone was expecting the Giants to be, magnificent this year, but this injury it's not going to help them. Let's just say that. It's not going to help them. So, yeah, it's just unfortunate. It seems like it's been confirmed that he's going to be out an extended period of time. So, I think we're just waiting to see if it's going to be out for the season or out for however many weeks. But seems like I guess it depends what type of injury, because the wonderful internet says this injury can include sprains, dislocations, fractures, or other types of damage. So I guess it depends what type of, extra injury comes along with this, or how significant it is will depend on if he's out for the season or just an extended period of time. But big blow for the Giants. Those are all the headlines we're going to cover this week. Obviously, there's been, seems like even just today, there's been like 50 billion different headlines. Tom Brady got approved for being a partial owner of the Raiders. There's been some other just random stuff as well. Like, it has been a crazy day for just NFL headlines. But we're going to move on to our picks or our predictions for week number 7. We both had a solid last week. I think we both went 12-2, if I'm not mistaken. I went 12-2. I'm pretty sure you went 12-2 as well.
Yeah, we both did, I believe. Pretty solid.
Yeah, that means we're both up to a 50-42 overall records, and we're still tied. So we're going to move on to week 7 predictions, starting off with Thursday night football. I'm not going to lie, this game may be a put on your second monitor and go, do something else type of game. We have the Broncos at the Saints.
Look, this game's gonna be a snooze fest. I mean, who wants to watch this game on Thursday night, bro? Like, come on, man. Couldn't give us a better game. Anyways, other than that, I'm taking the New Orleans Saints. I think this is a home game for the Saints, first of all, so that helps them. But a big blow is Pat Surtain. He suffered an injury in that game last week. I don't know what his status is, but I believe he's questionable. I'm not sure. Okay, so he was a non-participant today in practice, with a concussion. So I'm thinking he's not going to play this week, which is a huge blow to this Broncos defense. He's been the best corner in the league all year. So, without Pat Surtain on that defense, it's going to be rough. He's kind of their leader. The Saints offense, on the other hand, I mean, they still got Alvin Kamara, and they have weapons. Rattler just has to find him. I'm assuming he's starting this week again. Derek Carr is listed as doubtful, I believe. So I'm going under the assumption that Rattler is going to play this week. So I think the Saints will find a way to get it done on offense. And I think that's how they're going to win this game. Bo Nix is 5 touchdowns and 5 interceptions on the year. The Saints defense is going to eat him up. He's not going to be able to withstand the Saints defense, who they've looked all right this year, but they're still the Saints. They're known for having a good defense. And yeah, I'm taking the Saints.
I'm taking the Broncos. Yeah, Spencer Rattler. It's going to be Spencer Rattler versus Bo Nix, but yeah, I don't think Derek Carr is playing. So Spencer Rattler is going to start. Alvin Kamara, it says he's questionable now, but I'm pretty sure he'll play. Chris Olave, concussion. He's listed as questionable. I'm going under the assumption he is not playing this week. Rashid Shaheed, knee injury, was listed as a non-participant this week. I've seen some stuff saying that he could potentially have a pretty significant knee injury that could potentially get to a point where it could be season ending. So I'm going under the assumption too that I doubt he is playing as well. Also, Cedric Wilson is apparently questionable as well. I'm not sure what his injury is. He was limited in practice with an ankle. Kamara was limited in practice with a hand injury. Taysom Hill is still limited. And then, like you said, Olave and Shaheed didn't participate in this practice. And they pretty much have to participate in practice tomorrow if they want to play on Thursday, which I'm going to say neither of them are going to play. So we're going to have Bud Means, I want to say it was. Yeah, Bud Means at wide receiver 1, especially if Cedric Wilson doesn't play. And then you have Mason Tippin. I just don't like this offense with all these injuries for the Saints. And we're going to have Spencer Rattler. Even with the loss of Pat Surtain, I feel like this Broncos defense will do enough to, just rattle Spencer Rattler, essentially. We saw in that game against the Bucs, once Todd Bowles started cooking up some exotic, schemes for blitzing, he really struggled. I feel like Sean Payton can do that as well because he's a good he he's a solid coach, Sean Payton. So I feel like if he does that, confuses Spencer Rattler with these looks at the line of scrimmage and stuff, it's gonna get to him. And this may be an ugly game, but I think the Broncos are gonna do just enough to pull out the win. Our second snooze fest of the week was your 9:30 a.m. London game, the Patriots against the Jaguars.
This one might be even worse than the Thursday night game. Um, I'm taking the Jaguars. Look, I mean, they were in London last week. They clearly had the advantage. They're still in London. I mean, this team this team can beat the Patriots. Or not Jacoby Brissett. Drake May now is at the helm of this Patriots offense. And look, he's still a rookie. It's only his second ever game in London. It's gonna be a tough matchup for him. I like the Jags here. I think Trevor Lawrence can get back on track against this defense. I mean, outside of Christian Gonzalez, their defense is kind of weak. They should be able to run the ball. Hopefully, Tank Bigsby gets some touches in there. I'm assuming Etienne's not gonna play this week.
He's listed as
So
doubtful, so I
yeah,
doubt he's
so
playing.
I'm gonna take Jacksonville for that reason. I think the Jaguars might even be able to get some pressure on Drake May in this game, which will be huge. Um, you know, Houston, they don't have the best pass rushers. I mean, they got one good pass rusher, but outside of that, their defensive line's not good. So I think Jags, I got Jonathan Allen. I think he can make a play and not, I'm sorry, Josh Allen, whatever. And yeah, I like the Jags here. I don't know.
I'm taking the Patriots. I mean, like I was thinking about taking the Jaguars because of you know they've been in London for a week, so they're probably gonna have that sort of advantage. But dude, this Jaguars team is just not good. ETN's probably not gonna play. I mean, we'll have to see where Brian Thomas Jr. lines up, but hey, if Christian Gonzalez lines up on him, even Jonathan Jones, like Jonathan Jones isn't, outstanding, but he is solid. So, I think Trevor Lawrence, I don't know, like they're going to need a big game from Tank Bigsby, which may or may not happen, but look, we may see this Jaguars defense is not good. We may see the ball just get completely ran by Ramondre Stevenson, although he's questionable. So I'm not sure, if he
He
will
did
play
miss
or
last
not.
week, so
Yeah, so
not
maybe
sure
he
on his
doesn't. But
status.
even if he misses, Antonio Gibson is more than prepared enough to take up that role. Plus, he's probably more of an advantage in the passing game as well. I think Drake May gives this Patriots element, a better shot of passing and, big, long passing shots as well downfield. And I feel like they're going to take advantage of that. You've seen the Jaguars defense, a lot of big plays given up against them. So it's going to be, this may be another snooze fest. It's going to be some wacky game because it's in London as well. But I don't know. I just like the Patriots. I like the Patriots a little better with Drake May at the helm. So that's why I'm going with them. Up next, we have Seattle at Atlanta.
I've taken the Atlanta Falcons. They looked good last week against the Panthers of all people, but I think the Falcons have really figured it out in the last couple weeks. Their offense is clicking. Their defense has been decent. Um, they had 2 picks, I think, in that game against Carolina. So, I think they'll be able to beat the Seattle team. I like their offensive matchup against Seattle, especially in the run game. We're talking about how the Seahawks are kind of banged up and they're allowing a lot of rushing yards. Well, I think this is a game where Bijan can go off and that'll open up the passing lanes. Yeah, I expect this to be a close game though. I think Seattle will put up a fight. I mean, they still got a good offense, but I think it'll come down to the defensive matchup here, and I think Atlanta's just gonna beat them on that side of the ball.
I'm taking Atlanta. Yeah, I mean, Seahawks defense has not been good the past 3 games. They've been average, like giving up almost 35 points a game, and the Falcons have been scoring a lot of points in the past couple of games as well. So, you know, it's like the worst offense or the worst defense of the past couple of games going against one of the best offenses in the past couple of games. I think Bijan may have a big game. If not, Tyler Algier is going to somehow have a massive game. You know, there's a couple cornerbacks for Seattle questionable as well. I think they'll both play though. But I mean, the deciding factor in this game is going to be the run defense. You know, can Seattle stop the run? And if they can't, I think this is going to be not an easy win, but it's going to be a pretty plausible win for Atlanta. And I mean, the Seattle offense can keep up with anyone. So, you know, maybe they'll try some different strategy, you know, try to hold the ball for as much as possible, use as much as the clock as they can. But yeah, I don't know. The big question is going to be that run defense versus the Atlanta run game. But I'm going with Atlanta. Up next, we have Tennessee at Buffalo. And as of right now, according to the ESPN Fantasy Pick'ems, 99% of people are picking Buffalo.
Look, I'm not gonna be the 1% who picks the Titans, okay? Will Levis has looked awful. Their offense cannot get anything done. And with Amari Cooper now in Buffalo, I think this is a free win for the Bills, who looked good against the Jets last night. I like this matchup for the Bills. Should be an easy win for them. Is it in Buffalo? I think it is, right?
Yeah, it's in Buffalo.
All right, that's even more of an advantage. I mean, Will Levis can't play in Buffalo. Let's be real here. Let's just take the Bills, get this over with.
I'm taking the Bills. Like you said, we'll probably get a Will Levis meme, but I mean, like even if L'Jarius Sneed locks up Amari Cooper, I mean, they're going to find another way to win, whether it's with another wide receiver or running the football. I mean, what was it? Ray Davis had a monster game against the Jets. So even if James Cook doesn't play for some reason, I'm pretty confident the Bills are going to win this. I'm taking the Bills. I mean, I don't really have to explain too much. Up next, we have Cincinnati at Cleveland. And yeah, over 90% of the people as of right now are taking Cincinnati.
Yeah, I'm with the 90%. Cincinnati has been firing on all cylinders on offense recently. They're looking good. And their defense has been the weak point of this team, but they're playing Deshaun Watson, who is one of the the worst quarterback in the NFL. So, I mean, this should be a pretty good matchup for them all around. No more Amari Cooper. Njoku and Jerry Jeudy are his only targets anymore. Jerome Ford is injured. I don't even know who they're. I guess Deontay Foreman is their RB1 right now. I don't know. This Browns team's in shambles. They're looking like mid 2010s Browns prime form right here. 1-15 or 16, whatever. I'm taking the Cincinnati Bengals here.
I'm taking the Bengals. Yeah, I mean, they just lost Amari Cooper. You're saying Jerome Ford's not playing. He's questionable as of right now, I want to say. So who knows if he plays? If he doesn't play, they have Deontay Foreman and Pierre Strong Jr. They've got, I mean, just looking at their depth chart, they got like 7 offensive linemen that are on IR. I mean, this team is it's just downhill for this team. You know, they'll probably trade Zadarius Smith and Myles Garrett. That would be hilarious if they did. But I mean, going back onto the game, I'm taking Cincinnati. I mean, yeah, Deshaun Watson hasn't been good. And I think this team is really going to struggle without Amari Cooper as well, even though the Bengals defense hasn't been that good. All right, up next, we have Houston at Green Bay.
This will be one of the best games of the week, in my opinion. I'm excited for this matchup. Um, but yeah, I think Houston's biggest thing here is they got to run the ball against the Packers. The Packers are one of the worst. Well, they're like middle of the pack actually against the run. Um, they held James Conner to minimal gains, but that's mostly because we got up so early last week against the Cardinals. So Houston needs to run the ball in this game. I think we can match up pretty well in the secondary against Stroud. With no Nico Collins, Jair Alexander can lock down Tank Dell. Um, this secondary is one of the best in the game right now. We have two of the best safeties in the league. Evan Williams is the number one ranked PFF player of all rookies, who is our second safety. So and we have Xavier McKinney, who ended his 5-week interception streak last week, unfortunately. But that's because Kyler Murray didn't throw the ball more than 20 yards downfield. Anyways, um, this defense, the only issue is the run game. So it comes down to the run game. But I am taking the Green Bay Packers. I think our run game will be able to expose the Texans. And our wide receivers, we just got a great wide receiver core. We're going to be able to. Jordan Love's going to piece this Houston defense up. It's in Lambeau as well, which also helps us out. And you know, I'm excited for this game. It'll be a good matchup, but I'm taking the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I'm taking Green Bay as well. Jaden Reed and Dontavion Wicks are questionable, so we'll see if they play. I want to say Wicks will most likely play. Jaden Reed, I don't know. I think he's 50-50. So we'll have to see when that comes around. But yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be a close game. Don't get me wrong. I think it's going to be a real close game. Um, I think the Packers are due have the slight edge, though. As long as they can protect Jordan Love from that pass rush of Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, I think Jordan Love can, get a couple big plays to, Christian Watson or someone else downfield. I would like it, more if Tucker Kraft could get more involved than last week as well. I think that'll depend, though, on if any of the wide receivers don't play or they get hurt during the game as well. But I think it's going to be a close game either way. This game's going to come down to a Quay Walker unsportsmanlike conduct penalty if he has one. Just had to throw that out there. But yeah, I think Green Bay is going to take this. I think that Lambeau crowd is going to, be the deciding factor in this. But I think this is going to be one of the best games that we see this week, though. And it's going to be a close one, probably like a 2 or 3 point game. Up next, we have Miami at Indianapolis.
This is a tough one for me. Miami's coming off the bye. They're fresh. They're healthy. Um, but I think it comes down to two key players, and that's if Joe Flacco and Jonathan Taylor are playing. If Joe Flacco and Jonathan Taylor are playing this game, I think they win. If Anthony Richardson is the starting QB, I don't think they win. But I'm going with the assumption that Flacco's playing because Anthony Richardson is still listed as questionable and Flacco doesn't have an injury designation. So I'm going with the Colts for this game. At the end of the day, this Miami Dolphins team has looked dysfunctional without Tua. Their only win without Tua was against the Patriots, who looked even more dysfunctional. So I think this Miami offense, maybe they figured something out over the bye week, but their defense also isn't that great. I think that's why if Joe Flacco is the quarterback for this week, he'll be able to piece up this Miami defense very easily. Um, Josh Downs has been a big factor. Michael Pittman's been good too. So I look for them to keep that passing game going. I think Jonathan Taylor will play this week. So that will also help their chances against the Dolphins, who do not have a great run defense as of right now. So that being said, I'm taking the Colts.
I'm taking the Colts as well. Yeah, it's looking like Josh Downs, especially with Joe Flacco at quarterback, is looking like that number one wide receiver, even over Michael Pittman. So yeah, if Joe Flacco plays, I think the Colts are going to win this 100%. The Dolphins, like I think the Dolphins, especially Devon Chain, I think he's returning this week as well. So I feel like he can, because the Colts defense, I mean, we know how it is. He can be locked down one drive, and then the next drive they're giving up a monster, like 65-yard, whatever, pass run, whatever it may be. So I feel like Devon Chain, he may break off a couple big runs, but outside of that, you, the offense hasn't looked good without Tua, and that'll be the deciding factor because the Dolphins don't have a elite defense. They have a good defense, but it's not elite. And a veteran like Joe Flacco, even though he's kind of washed, he makes some bad decisions. I think that's just because of he's getting older. But I think Joe Flacco is more than capable of taking this Colts team to a victory over a kind of beat down Miami team, even though they're coming off the bye week. Up next, we have Detroit at Minnesota.
This will also be a very exciting game. This will tell what the North really looks like, the NFC North. I'm excited for this game. It's at Minnesota. Minnesota's coming off a bye. That being said, I'm taking the Detroit Lions. They looked dominant against the Cowboys last week. Although you can say, "Oh, Cowboys are bad this year." Whatever. I like the Detroit Lions here. People have been hyping up Sam Darnold. Look, the last two games, Sam Darnold hasn't been great. I'm gonna be just completely honest, right? Um, he looked a little shaky in London, in my opinion. I mean, one touchdown, one interception, and then he couldn't mount any points in that second half against Green Bay. So, in my opinion, Darnold's in a little bit of a slump here. And I think Detroit's gonna be able to take advantage. I think, you know, Ben Johnson is a mastermind on offense, and he's going to be able to outwit Brian Flores in this Vikings defense, in my opinion. I mean, every week we see a trick play coming out of the Lions offense, hook and ladder, Dan Skipper lining up in the wide receiver, big man touchdowns, whatever it may be. This Detroit Lions offense will find a way to get it done against the Vikings.
I'm taking the Lions. Yeah, the Vikings are coming off a bye week though, but I mean everything on this Detroit team is clicking. We'll have to see how impactful that Aiden Hutchinson injury is. This will be a good test to see who can step up in Aiden Hutchinson's spot essentially because he's going to be out for the rest of the year pretty much. So especially the end of the regular season. So I mean this is going to be a good game. I think like you said, whoever wins this game I think is going to, I wouldn't say the clear favorite to win the NFC North, but I feel like it's going to have a solid idea on who is going to finish at the top of the NFC North and who essentially will be fighting for a wild card spot in that division. But I don't know how I can see why people are picking Minnesota, but I just can't see how you're not picking Detroit. I mean, they're clicking on everything. Offense, the defense, they got one of the best run defenses in all of football. So, especially if that run game isn't working, especially if Aaron Jones doesn't play, the Vikings are going to be passing a lot. And, if they get pressure on Sam Darnold, make him uncomfortable, he's most likely going to make a mistake as well. So, I'm taking the Lions. I feel like this is more clear-cut than people are making it seem to be, but it's going to be a good game either way. Up next, we have Philadelphia at the New York Giants.
I'm taking the Philadelphia Eagles. I think Sirianni's got to get his game together here, man. Um, this Giants defense is kind of criminally underrated, in my opinion. Their defense overall is pretty good. I mean, they held Jamar Chase to one of his lowest games of the year, especially when he was coming off a hot streak there. Um, but I think the Eagles will be able to win. They just got to get Barkley the ball, man. I'm gonna be honest. That's all it comes down to. Give Saquon Barkley the ball. He's the best player on your offense, and that'll open up the passing game for Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is not a pure passer like some of these other quarterbacks in the league. He needs that run game to be going for this team to be successful. And I think the Eagles also their defense they got to step up. But just because it's the New York Giants, I think the Eagles will be able to win this game.
Yeah, I agree. I'm taking the Eagles. I mean, technically, it's a Saquon Barkley return to New York, so it could be kind of a revenge game for him. Look, they need to give Saquon the ball. He's essential to that offense. I think it takes some pressure off Jalen Hurts. I mean, he does have his wide receivers back, Jalen Hurts. So, AJ Brown seems to always bully, defenders in that NFC East division. So, AJ Brown might have a big game, or Devonta Smith might have a big game, but I'm looking at Saquon Barkley to have a big game against his former team. And I think that's going to be the difference. Malik Neighbors may cause some problems if he plays. I think Tyrone Tracy as well will have a solid game because that Eagles defense, it's good up front, but they somehow always seem, doesn't matter how much talent they have up front, they always seem to struggle against the run for some reason. So, he could have a big game, but it's still, at the end of the day, it's still Daniel Jones at quarterback. And when Daniel Jones is at quarterback, the New York Giants are going to New York Giants. So I got to go with the Eagles here. Okay, up next, this may be our third snooze fest of the week. We have Las Vegas at the LA Rams.
I'm taking the Rams here. Kyron Williams is gonna run all over this Raiders team. Um, Devontae being traded doesn't really do much to this team. I mean, they've been without him for 3 weeks, so we kind of know what to expect out of this team. Aiden O'Connell's gonna be the starter, I'm assuming. I haven't heard otherwise. So, yeah. I mean, he's throwing to Jacoby Myers, and I mean that's just not a good offense. Their run game has been not great. Zamir White, Alexander Madison, not great this year. So I think the Rams will be able to get after the quarterback. I'm expecting a big game from Jared Verse here. I'm looking for him to have 2 sacks in this game. That's my call here. He's gonna be an X factor in this game. I like the Rams defense in this matchup, and Cooper Kupp is questionable. We might see a return from him. I don't think there's word on if he's will play. Maybe they play it safe since it is the Raiders and just wait till next week. But that would be a crazy addition to this offense, and I think this offense might look more functional with Cooper Kupp back and Kyron Williams healthy. I mean, this offense with just those 2 weapons already looks way different, and I think that'll be enough success for the Rams to beat the Raiders.
I'm taking the Rams. They're coming off a bye week as well. So, yeah, Cooper Kupp's still up in the air. I don't know. I feel like he's leaning towards playing, but we'll have to see. It wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't play, but I mean, the Raiders, Zamir White is injured. He's questionable right now, so I'm not sure if he even plays. And Aiden O'Connell, I think, is starting as well. He's throwing to Brock Bowers, who seems to be like the number 2 or the number 1 target, depending on, the game. And Jacoby Myers is questionable, but I think he'll play. So, I feel like Jacoby Myers is going to have like he's not bad, Jacoby Myers, right? He's definitely
Hmm.
not like, you know, Devante Adams, but I feel like he's, especially with this offense, he's the clear cut number one guy on this team. So if he plays, I feel like he's going to have a lot of targets this game, especially if the Raiders get down big and they're forced to throw the ball a lot this game as well. But yeah, I mean, like you said, the Rams defensive line is going to wreak havoc on this team. I mean, Jared Verse has been good. I mean, I mean, Brandon Fiskey's questionable, but I think he plays as well. You have Byron Young. I mean, they've got some solid, players on that defensive line, and they always seem to, have the ability to create some sort of pressure. So I think it's going to be a long game for the Raiders. So that's why I'm taking the Rams. Up next, we have Carolina at Washington, and looks like 98% of fans are saying the Commanders are going to win this game.
Yeah. This will be another blowout. That Andy Dalton magic has seemed to wash away. Um, he was average against the Falcons last week. We talked about that Jonathan Allen injury, so that might have an impact in this game. Chuba Hubbard's been pretty good on the year. I don't know if Jonathan Brooks will be involved in this game at all either. I'm not sure. I think his expected return was this week, so we'll see if that is still true. But the Commanders, look, Jaden Daniels is looking like an absolute beast out there. He's going to be able to pick apart this Carolina defense. And this game really shouldn't be close. So yeah, I'm taking the Washington Commanders.
I'm taking the Commanders. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's too much to say on this game, honestly. Andy Dalton hasn't looked good his past couple of games. Brian Robinson is questionable, but like it doesn't matter. The Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler have both played good this year. So even if Austin Eckler ends up, having a full load essentially this game, if Brian Robinson doesn't play, I don't think that matters. Um, yeah, I mean, they got Terry McLaurin. McLaurin's been good. Jane Daniels has been a stud as well. And well, I think we'll just have to see, how big that Jonathan Allen injury is going to be. Like you said, how much of an impact that's going to be. But the rest of this team, I mean, I think Carolina can put up, maybe 24, 28 points. But I feel like this Washington team, the offense especially, is way more than capable of putting up, 35, probably closer to 40 points against this Carolina team, which just hasn't been good. I mean, they've had a couple of games where they've looked decent, but they just haven't looked good. It seems like if one side of the ball plays good, the other side doesn't, and they're just haven't been complete when they've had decency. So I'm taking Washington. Up next, we have Kansas City at San Francisco.
This will be a good one to watch. I'm taking the Kansas City Chiefs. It's hard to bet against the Chiefs and the refs. I mean, you never know what's gonna happen. Somehow they always find a way to win, and I think they'll win this game too. San Francisco, they've kind of just felt mid all year. They don't feel like the San Francisco we've seen in the past. I don't know how to explain it. But Jordan Mason, I'm not sure what his status is. But I'm assuming questionable for this game. So Kansas City, I think they'll be able to control the run game. Their defense is just good in general, and Mahomes will find a way to get it done on offense. Yeah, I like the Chiefs here.
I'm taking Kansas City as well. They're coming off a bye week as well. So, granted, the Niners are coming off a mini bye playing on Thursday night, but the Chiefs have had the full week. Andy Reid has just been prepping for this game. It is in San Francisco, but I don't think that'll be too much of an impact. I'm not gonna lie. You know, who knows? Maybe the refs will have something to say about that. But yeah, Jordan Mason's questionable as of right now, so I'm not sure if he's even going to play. If he doesn't, we have the rookie Isaac Guerrero, so and Patrick Taylor Jr. So we'll have to see. But I mean, the Chiefs are pretty decent at stopping the run, so we'll see how they pair up against Ayuk and Debo and George Kittle. But yeah, I mean, like you said, this Niners team hasn't felt like the good Niners team that we have seen, and they have a bunch of people questionable. On that defensive side, Dre Greenlaw's out. They have, one of their linebackers is questionable. Travarius Ward is questionable. Their strong safety, or their backup strong safety, I should say, Malik Hustafua is questionable. I hope I said that right. They don't even have a kicker. So I don't know what they're doing about their kicker. Jake Moody is doubtful, and then the kicker they signed off the couch last week is questionable. So who even knows what is going to go on for them? Maybe they'll have to go for 2 points all game, but
Actually, I think they signed Anders Carlson, the Packers kicker from last year, who was historically bad that everyone was memeing all. I believe they signed him to the practice squad, so I think
oh
that might be their
man.
kicker this week.
Hey, it may be, but yeah, I mean, the Chiefs coming off a bye week as well. I think they're going to be the only undefeated team that still remains after the end of this week. Mahomes, I mean, he does his thing. He's got Juju, he's got Xavier. It seems like Mahomes is getting more comfortable with Juju again. So I feel like Juju is going to be, have a bigger role in the upcoming weeks, especially. So I'm taking the Chiefs. Monday Night Football, we have. Oh, I'm sorry, not Monday night. We have Sunday Night Football before Monday Night Football. We have the New York Jets at Pittsburgh.
I like the New York Jets here. Look, Devante Adams, Aaron Rodgers, they're just gonna have fun out there against Pittsburgh, in my opinion. This will be a good game for the Jets, bounce back game. They're locked in. They're trying to make playoffs. This is their game to prove that they can do that. And the development out of the Steelers, Russell Wilson is taking first team snaps in practice. So people are speculating that Wilson will be the starting quarterback this week against the Jets, which is kind of surprising. Um, Justin Fields has been playing pretty well, and I think this will kind of kill the momentum of the Steelers. I've liked watching Justin Fields this year. 10 touchdowns, 1 interception. I mean, he's playing the best football of his career. And Najee Harris had a good game this week. But I think this offense is just gonna kind of have to refine its footing if Wilson is playing this week. So I think it's a good game for the Jets to take advantage of that. Their defense will get back on track, and that's why I like the Jets here against the Steelers.
I I'm taking the New York Jets as well. Yeah, I saw that thing about Russell Wilson. I think I think he's going to be the starter, so yeah, that may disrupt some stuff. I mean, he hasn't really played too much. He didn't really play much last year because he was injured and stuff and all that. The other situations. So we'll have to see how that even develops. We'll have to see how he plays. I mean, essentially he hasn't played in a long time, so he's probably going to have some rust to knock off as well. We'll have to see, his chemistry between his wide receivers, George Pickens, Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin. But yeah, I mean, I think the big thing in this game though is going to be the Jets protecting Aaron Rodgers. They got Cameron Hayward, T.J. Watt coming off the side, so we're just gonna have to see if they can. If they can go ahead and the Jets can go ahead and protect Aaron Rodgers in the pocket. But I think he'll get that ball out faster with Devante Adams coming along and him most likely playing this week. So I feel like that's going to help him as well. They also got a ton of injuries over in Pittsburgh. I mean, they're, you know, Alex Highsmith is questionable. The backup behind him is out. You know, the backup strong safety is questionable. Their nickel cornerback, like, I wouldn't even say he was nickel cornerback, but Cameron Sutton's suspended. I mean, they're kind of all over the place, Pittsburgh. So who knows? Maybe this is a defensive battle this game. But I think the big thing in this game is going to be protecting Aaron Rodgers. And then we'll have to see how Russell Wilson plays if he ends up being the starter for this game. Okay, now we move on to Monday Night Football. Our first Monday Night Football game, we have Baltimore at Tampa Bay.
I'm taking the Baltimore Ravens. Look, their offense has been rolling, and I think they'll just continue to do it against the Bucks, whose defense is kind of mid. Um, Look, Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, they're going to be too much for the Bucks to handle on defense. And defensively for the Ravens, it will be kind of a tough matchup. This will probably be a high scoring game in my opinion. Baker's been playing good. This offense has been playing pretty good. But one downfall of the Bucks is their run game. We're looking at Rashad Wright, White, Bucky Irving, and then the rookie, I don't remember his name. I think it's something Tucker, but he had like the most rushing yards on the team last week.
Oh,
So
Sean
they're back.
Tucker.
Yeah,
Oh,
Tucker.
Bucky,
Okay.
yeah, Bucky Irving's also a rookie.
Yeah, so both of those guys, plus Rashad White, their backfield's kind of a toss up, and I don't really like the way that's shaped out. So I think the Ravens will be able to handle the team, and yeah, that's why I'm taking the Ravens.
I'm taking Baltimore as well. Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a tough game for the Bucks defense. They've been inconsistent. Had some games. I mean, like that game against New Orleans. I mean, they gave 27 points in one quarter, but then didn't give up a single. They didn't give up points in the first, third, or fourth quarter, but they gave up 27 in one quarter. So we saw both sides of the scale on that. We've seen, you know, they're capable of, having a lockdown defense, but at the same time, they're capable of giving up a lot of yards, a lot of points. I mean, we saw it against Atlanta. They gave up 500 passing yards to Kirk Cousins. They gave up 38 points that game. So, I mean, I think the offense, I think, can keep up. I mean, Baker Mayfield threw 3 interceptions last week and still scored 51 points. So, they're more than capable of, generating offense and generating points. But I think, 3 turnovers or even 3 interceptions is going to be too many against a Ravens team that has a better defense than who they played last week. They played New Orleans. So, yeah, it's just going to be one of those things. Although they are getting Antoine Winfield back this game. I don't think he played last week. But Jamel Dean's questionable. Same thing with Christian Izien. So we'll have to see, how that lines up as well. But, I mean, hey, the two-headed monster, Bucky Irving and Sean Tucker, we'll have to see how that works out as well, especially if Rashad White does end up playing. We'll have to see how they split those carries up as well. If he doesn't play, I mean, Bucky Irving probably RB1, and then Sean Tucker will be back up. But that was pretty lethal last week, so we'll have to see if it keeps up like that. And in our final game of Week 7, we have Los Angeles Chargers at Arizona.
I watched that game, the Cardinals against the Packers last week, and the Cardinals did not look good. But I think they're gonna win. I think they're gonna beat the Chargers. Look, Kyler, I think will be able to handle this Chargers defense. I'm not sure what Marvin Harrison's status is. I'm assuming he might be out this week. So that's kind of a big blow, but McBride's still there. Harrison's dealing with a concussion, so I think they'll probably give him the week. But I don't know. I just have a gut feeling about this team. Cardinals, big plays. I think they'll be able to generate big plays against the Chargers, and that's where they'll win this ball game. Uh, for the most part, the Cardinals have struggled in the passing game the most. Chargers are not a great passing team this year. Their run game is what they rely on. So I think Arizona might get up early in this game, and Herbert has to rely strictly on the passing game, which is just not going to be a formula for success against the Arizona Cardinals and this not very good wide receiver room in Los Angeles. So for that reason, I'm taking the Cardinals.
I'm taking the Chargers. It didn't. The Cardinals didn't look good last week. They didn't look good the week before that. Marvin Harrison Jr. He's questionable, but I don't think he's going to play with concussion-like symptoms. Zay Jones also questionable, so you're going to have Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, and then Trey McBride, who's probably been their best, passing weapon when, Marvin Harrison may or may not be involved. Sometimes he's had big games, sometimes been non-existent. James Conner is going to need a big, and I mean a big game, which could potentially be there. But there was one point in that Packers game where he was the leading rusher, he was the leading receiver on like one reception, and it wasn't even like a big play. It was like I don't even know, 15 or 16 yards or something. So, James Conner's going to be a big game if the Cardinals want to win this, but I just don't see them winning this game. I think the Chargers, they're going to run the ball. That seems to be their memo. And as long as they can keep it that way, control the clock as well, I think they'll take this win. It may be a close game. I think closer than people were expecting. Also, they do have Chad Ryland as their kicker, though. They put Matt Prater on IR, so he wasn't good with New England. I think he played for New England last year. He wasn't that good, so we will have to see how he does when the Cardinals score points. Anyways, those are our predictions for week number 7. Who's your auto lock for this week? I have a feeling I know which team it's going to be.
Look, there's a lot of good options this week, but I think the best option has to be the Bills. You know, Will Levis does not stand a chance in this game. This is gonna be Buffalo all the way. Bills Mafia, baby. That's my auto lock this week.
I'm 100% agreeing with you. It's the Bills against the Titans. We'll get a Will Levis meme. The last week he had the Spider-Man web shooting, and that the ball man who he ran into. So hopefully that guy's doing okay. But yeah, it's in Buffalo. There's a reason why 99% of the people have Buffalo winning this game. If they lose for some reason, Buffalo, that 1% is probably like either geniuses or from the future or something. So yeah, the auto lock it's going to be Buffalo against Tennessee. Moving on to fantasy. And just like week 1, my fantasy team did not show up. Jordan Love had over a third of my points this week. Also, Trevor Etienne had -0.1 points.
That is rough. My team, on the other hand, put up 149 spot. We look solid. My weakest player, I think, was DK Metcalf, which is saying something. I think he had the least amount of points, even less than my defense and kicker. Okay, never mind. I'm lying. My defense had the least amount of points, but DK was second. So everyone else had good points. Pretty dominant win for my team. I like where I'm at, and I like my roster a lot.
Look, I'm not gonna lie. Looking at my team, I think after this bye week, I think I'm gonna have to start Cole Kmet at tight end every game. I mean, outside of that first week, outside of week one, he hasn't scored less than 6 points in a matchup. And especially when it feels like tight ends for fantasy are so hit and miss. You know, one week they may have 20 points, the next week they may not even get a target. I feel like 6 points is solid. So I mean, I may have to start Cole Kmet after this bye week they have because he had 24 points last week. He also had a game where he had 25, and in between that, he put up 6.4 and 8.7, which is saying something. He's third overall in position rank, and I mean, Tucker Kraft did not do too good for me last week, but I think that was because, you know, all the wide receivers in Green Bay were healthy. But I got some waiver. So I made a trade proposal. I don't think this will get looked at or accepted, but I'm looking to get Bijan and Brock Bowers for ETN, Komet, and Braylon Allen. It's
That
kind of
is a
out of
scam.
it's kind of out of left field. You know, I canceled my previous trade with this guy because I had it that in Malik Neighbors. Let me see if I can pull it up. And then I redid it. So my original one was Bijan and Malik Neighbors for Shakir, Shaheed, and ETN. On paper, it looks good. How they're playing, it's definitely not a good trade. Same thing with this trade that I have currently in place. So we'll see if it gets accepted. I'm still going to try to get Bijan. Dude, I need another running back. Like ETN is just not working. And Tajay Spears is questionable, so he's not going to play. And he's only been averaging 7.4 points a game, so it's not anything superb. So I really need a trade for a running back.
Yeah, that's a rough spot. I've won waiver wire this week. The only thing I'm trying to do is switch out my defense. I'm trying to add the Broncos defense, and I'm trying to drop the Falcons defense. Maybe the Broncos defense doesn't give up the most amount of points against the Saints. And I think that game will be pretty low scoring. So I think the Broncos defense probably a pretty good matchup. Definitely better than the Falcons against Seattle. So that's my only waiver for this week. The rest of my team's looking pretty solid.
I have 2 waivers. I'm really hoping I get both. My first one, I'm dropping Chase McLaughlin because I only needed him because Harrison Buckner was on a bye week. I'm adding Tyrone Tracy. You know, I've seen some stuff. Even if Singletary comes back, there's still, Tyrone Tracy's still going to get a majority of the snaps share. So I'm bouncing on that. And look, he's gonna have to be my RB, especially if I get him. I think I'm fourth in the waiver wire, so there's a solid chance I can get him. If I don't, then I got to pick up another running back because I got Braylon Allen and Tajay Spears, and Tajay Spears is questionable and projected for 0 points. So I have to see. I'll have to see, and ETN's obviously doubtful. My other waiver claim is to drop Khalil Shakir and pick up Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers is questionable, but Shakir may or may not do good. I don't really know. I may switch that. We'll have to see. So, but I'm leaving it as now. I feel like Jacoby Myers is just going to have more opportunities, especially with Devante Adams being completely gone. So, we'll have to see. He's projected for about 14 points this game or this week. So, I'm not sure. It's just it's just his bye week that's killing me. So once I get DJ Moore out of this bye week, I think I should be solid. I think I'm projected to win though this week. I gotta look at that.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm looking pretty good this week in my matchup. I'm projected. Let's see. 116 points, and I currently have Bucky Irving in my lineup, and I'm planning to put Jonathan Taylor in my lineup as long as he's healthy. I think he's gonna play. My opponent has Trey Sermon in my lineup, who, well, if Taylor's playing, he's not gonna be a factor. Also has Daniel Jones as starting QB, averaging 14 points. Can win the QB matchup. I think I win overall. I think I win the running back matchups. Wide receiver matchups, I win. He's got Garrett Wilson and Calvin Ridley. Wilson, his production's kind of up in the air with the Adams trade. Ridley's been trash all year. He's got Laporta at tight end, who's been a dud outside of last week. J.K. Dobbins against Devante in the flex. That's pretty close. Don't think I'll lose because of the flex. He's got the Steelers defense against the Jets, which will be a tough matchup, and then Justin Tucker at kicker. So, overall, I'm projected 116. He's projected 102. So I think I have better odds, and yeah, I think this should be a win for me this week.
I'm projected. I haven't switched anyone out yet, but I'm projected to win 57% win probability. Obviously, I haven't switched out ETN or DJ Moore yet. But, I mean, he's got Prescott and Lamb who are on bye weeks. He does not, as of right now, have a backup quarterback. He's got James Cook and Ramondre Stevenson is questionable. Devante Adams is technically still questionable. Hawkinson, they gave TJ Hawkinson points, but his status says he's out. So I have no idea if he's playing or if he's not playing. So, I mean, we'll have to see. And then Cooper Kupp is questionable, but he has points as well. So, I mean, this guy doesn't have a lot of options though on his bench. I mean, he's got JSN or Kendrick Bourne to replace CeeDee Lamb for the bye week. And he doesn't have an extra quarterback. And for some reason, if one of his running backs can't play, he's got Jonathan Brooks, which is out, and his only running back that he can start is Jalen Wright, which is not good. So I'm feeling confident. I gotta see what this waiver wire stuff is as well. Like, yeah, that's what I gotta figure
Yeah,
out.
Nico, you should not lose this matchup.
I feel like I'm kind of making a mistake potentially dropping Shakir, but at the same time, I don't even know who else I would drop, essentially.
I
I
think
guess,
Shakir isn't a terrible drop because, I mean, with the Cooper there now, I mean, that's definitely tanking Shakir's stock, and I doubt he'll get picked up, to be honest, so it's
yeah.
probably not that bad of a drop.
I mean, before that game he was out, he was actually doing pretty good. Lowest game was 10.2. This game he only had 2 targets, but I think he was still kind of injured-ish, so who knows? We'll see. We'll see what the transactions go through. Maybe someone drops someone crazy, but we will have to see. I'll probably end up going to end up, if I get both these waivers, which I'm hoping I do, I'm going to put Tyrone Tracy in, even though I think he's only projected 6 points for some reason this week. He's projected 6.1 points, which doesn't make any sense, but who knows. So I'll put him in. And then if I get Jacoby Myers, he is 100% coming in for DJ Moore. Because then I don't have anyone else. I don't even like the Shaheed matchup, even if he does play. I mean, he's got Spencer Rattler against Denver, so kind of regretting trading Terry McLaurin as of right now, but this is what it is.
Yeah, McLaurin's been decent the last few weeks. He's putting up like 20 spots.
Him.
Yeah,
The
that's
second I
unfortunate.
traded him, he started going off. Moving on, though, to our fun question. My fun question is, who's the next Packer to go to the New York Jets?
Oh my gosh. You know, everyone keeps talking about it, but I think there's 2 clear options. I can't pick one, but I think there's 2. Okay, the first one, I think it's got to be Robert Tonyan, all right? he was just recently released, and I think that Aaron Rodgers loves Robert Tonyan, and the Jets haven't had great production at that tight end spot. So Robert Tonyan, I mean, Aaron Rodgers would love that pickup. I'm just saying. And second of all, I mean, this one's kind of troll, but David Bakhtiari, I mean, dude hasn't played a snap in over a year, but Aaron Rodgers loves Bakhtiari, and he was one of the best tackles in the game for a long time. So maybe, I mean, I think he's technically a free agent. Um, but yeah, I mean, could be an interesting pickup. We talked about the Jets O line needing help. Imagine David Bakhtiari signing to the Jets. That'd be crazy.
I was thinking this is definitely a troll pick. I think it's more of like a special team wide receiver 4 pick, especially if they get rid of Mike Williams. They trade Mike Williams to another team. They go sign Marquez Valdez Scantling.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, he just got released. He's a Packer or a former Packer. Aaron Rodgers been loving his former Packers. So I mean, look, I could see it. I can see it, and he put up solid, nothing explosive, but he did put up solid stats when he was in Green Bay. So hey, there's always that opportunity. Otherwise, I'm not really sure. I don't think anything would happen this year, but maybe next year someone else, comes along and, you know, someone leaves on the Jets or someone ends up, not like, hey, maybe 20 years down the line, not 20 years, but 15 years or probably even less than that, Jordan Love becomes the next quarterback of the New York Jets in the future. It's bound to happen, I think.
All right, my question. I'm kind of stealing this question from a tweet I saw, but I'll DM you the tweet here. All right, who do you think is the best wide receiver duo in the NFL right now? The options are AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin, Jamar Chase and T Higgins, Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devante Adams, and Garrett Wilson as of today. And I'm just gonna throw it out there: Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that one.
I'm not going to pick Devante Adams and Garrett Wilson because I haven't seen them play together
Fair.
yet. I mean, they have potential to probably be the best. I think you can go so many routes with this. Yeah, you can go so many routes with this. I think from a consistency standpoint, I think you can do Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. It always seems if one of them isn't having a good game, the other one's having a monster game. But overall, I think you got to go with AJ Brown, Devonta Smith. I mean, AJ Brown has been we saw last year AJ Brown was an absolute menace. And sometimes he gets, focused a lot, AJ Brown, and that leaves Devonta Smith wide open. And he's more than capable of being a wide receiver one. He's a little, undersized, but Devonta Smith is more than capable of being a wide receiver one. There's a reason why he won the Heisman as well. The thing is with them though, Jalen Hurts, especially last year, he would throw, and granted AJ Brown would come down with half these balls, but he'd throw like triple coverage, like just not even look at anyone else, throw towards AJ Brown when he had like Devonta Smith wide open. So I think we get a little bit better of a quarterback, that surveys the field a little bit, and that's the best duo in the NFL as of right now. I mean, it can change. Obviously, they're both coming back from injury, so They may not currently be the best, but they were definitely the best at one point.
I'm about to agree with you. I think AJ Brown and Devontae Smith are the best duo in the NFL. I think what's holding them back is truly Jalen Hurts. I mean, Jalen Hurts, he's a mid quarterback. His stats are padded from the tush push and the great weapons he has on offense. I mean, he only makes like one read on every play. He has one read and he doesn't even look at his other options. I feel like that's every play with Jalen Hurts. I mean, you don't see him making adjustments or play call adjustments, kind of like Jordan Love or Aaron Rodgers. He doesn't do that type of thing. So really, I think if you matched up AJ Brown and Devontae Smith with like Jordan Love or Patrick Mahomes or one of those guys, Josh Allen even, I think they're the best duo in the league easily. But I'm so excited to see this Adams and Wilson duo. It's going to be insane. But it almost gives off the vibes of like when KD went to the Suns and it was like Booker, KD, and like they just didn't produce like they were supposed to.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's how the Adams and Wilson situation kind of turns out. That's kind of what I'm thinking, which is kind of disappointing, but hey, it'll still be fun to watch, man.
I mean, yeah, it could be like that, or it could be like when Katie went to the Nets and it was like,
Yeah, that too. Harden and
Harden was
Kyrie.
injured, and then Kyrie was injured, and then
Yeah.
KD was injured, and they had like, I don't even remember, I think it was like 50 total games in 3 seasons or whatever it was, where they actually played on the court, all three of them together. So, I mean, I think this is going to, I mean, that duo, we'll have to see, but I think it's going to be a good duo. We'll have to, I'm almost confident Alan Lazard stays. So I think, I'm not sure where Mike Williams is going to go. You know, the Chiefs said they weren't looking to trade for a wide receiver, but he could go to Kansas City. You know, maybe he goes to, Baltimore, even Dallas. Dallas could use a solid, wide receiver too, especially with Brandon Cooks being out. So we'll have to see where Mike Williams ends up. I feel like they trade him and they keep Alan Lazard over him. That is going to wrap up this episode of Midweek Meetings. It was a long episode, but there were so much headlines to get to this weekend. Just, trade starting up. The trade deadline is coming up. I'm not sure what week it ends, but we're going to expect a lot more trades to be coming through these next couple of weeks as well. Curious to see who's going to be trading, if they're going to be trading to make pushes for the playoffs, the Super Bowl run, or if they're going to be pushing to make trades for, the offseason, get some draft picks, rebuild. So we'll have to see. Excited for these matchups this weekend as well. Hopefully I win fantasy this weekend as well. It seems if I do good in my predictions, I don't do good in fantasy. So we'll see how this goes. Anyway, so appreciate everyone who tuned in to this week's episode. If you're on YouTube, and make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss out on the future episodes. We do every episode live as well, starting at 7:30 p.m. EST on Tuesdays over on twitch.tv/KnockdownNico or twitch.tv/Pr3ssix. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you guys at the conclusion of week 7 for episode 8.